it's Rebecca and today is another book review day, and this is my 16th book that I have read for the 2015 reading challenge. I will put a little link down below in the description box to explain what the challenge is all about, but basically you read 52 books over a year and each book comes from a different category. And the book that I have been reading this week comes from the category of a book by an author that you love that you haven't read before. And this week I have been reading Charlie in the Great Glass Elevator by Roald Dahl. So I will read you the blurb and then talk to you about the book. Charlie Bucket has won Willy Wonka's chocolate factory and is on his way to take possession of it in a great glass elevator. But when the elevator makes a fearful whooshing noise, Charlie and his family find themselves in splendid orbit around the Earth. A daring adventure has begun with the one and only Mr. Willy Wonka leading the way. Roald Dahl is one of my all-time favourite authors. My favourite book, I think, ever is Matilda. And I remember reading that when I was little, and as I've got older I've read most of his children's books and some of his adult books as well. Very dark and disturbing. Read them. Brilliant. But I had never read this book. I've read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I've seen both of the films, really liked the story, and I wasn't too sure about a sequel to it. I think most of Roald Dahl's stories, if not all of them, stand alone very well, and although sometimes a follow-up would be nice, you know, what happened to James after the peach, and Matilda and Miss Honey, what's been going on there, I wasn't really sure how a follow-up could beat the original. I'll have to say I didn't enjoy it as much. I still enjoyed it. It was very funny in some places and very strange and very peculiar, but it wasn't as good as Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But I still liked it and I still think you should read it. So if you've not read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, why not? But basically 5 children win golden tickets to go to this magical chocolate factory, and one by one the children misbehave, they do naughty things, and because of that they get knocked out of the race to win this chocolate factory. And by the end, Charlie and his grandpa Joe, who have been very well behaved, are told by Willy Wonka that Charlie has won possession of the chocolate factory because Willy Wonka's getting too old to take care of it. So the whole family, Charlie's entire family, his parents and his 4 grandparents, climb into this glass elevator with all of these buttons on the walls, and that's where the story ends. So the story begins here with the family in the elevator, and for some strange reason Willy Wonka wants the great glass elevator to fly out of the roof of the chocolate factory and then fly back down into it at a different point. But as they're getting higher and higher and higher and further away from the Earth, they realise that they're going to end up orbiting the Earth in space, and this is what happens. And they spot a space hotel, which is America's newest venture, and they think that they'll dock there, it'll be safe, and they'll be able to make their way back to Earth. But on this giant space hotel, they come across some aliens called vermicious canids, who are very strange and egg-shaped, and they can change their shape, and they are quite frightening. And Willy Wonka, the entire family, run away, manage to get back in the great glass elevator and come back down to Earth. The thing that I found most fascinating about this book compared to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, in the first one, the children are very naughty. They're selfish, they're rude, they don't care about anything other than what they want right now. Apart from Charlie, I will have to say, he's a very well-behaved boy. But the other 4 children are very naughty and they get their comeuppance. So they do get punished for their terrible behaviours. In this book, it's the adults that behave terribly. Charlie has 4 grandparents: Grandpa Joe, Grandma Josephine, Grandpa George and Grandma Georgina. Grandpa Joe goes with Charlie to the chocolate factory in the first book, and the other 3 are so old that they stay in bed, and they're still in bed in this book, but they don't do as they're told. And Willy Wonka knows what's going on inside this elevator, and he knows what's going on inside his factory and all the things that he invents, and these wonderful concoctions and amazing potions and pills and various bits and pieces, and he knows how they work. He's tested them on his Oompa Loompas, and he knows what's going on. But these three grandparents behave like the children in the first book. I won't say what they do or what happens, but they do get their comeuppance, and they do get punished for their unbelievably childish behaviour, considering that they're all in their 80s. So this does have a happy ending. Charlie does inherit the chocolate factory. It's very nice. I kind of want to know what happens after this now. I'd quite like this to be a series. Unfortunately, it will never be. But I really like this, and I'm glad that I chose to read another Roald Dahl book, because he is so funny. He's got such a clever way with words. It's easy to read, I think, by kids, and as an adult, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I've said a million times before, there's nothing wrong with reading children's books. So this certainly was one that I was pleased with, and I'm glad I chose. And there are a few other Roald Dahl books that I haven't read, so I will get around to reading those at some point. But if you enjoyed the first book, there's still all of Willy Wonka's wacky adventures in this one, and like I say, it is very, very funny. So read this. Read the first one first, obviously, if you haven't read it, and then read this straight away, because it is really good. So if you would like to hear any of my other book reviews, then please subscribe to my channel. I put new videos out every time I've read a book. I also occasionally give writing advice and share with you my own writing. So if you are interested in reading and or writing, please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.